So the easiest way to scale your Facebook ads is with CBO campaigns. And if you're not using this CBO strategy to scale your Facebook ads, then it's very likely that every time you go to increase the budget or duplicate campaigns, your ROAS just drops and you can't scale past a certain level. So I'm going to show you the CBO scaling strategy that we use for our clients and their ad accounts, and you can steal it and use for yourself. Now, it's important to note that you obviously can't scale campaigns that haven't proven to be profitable, i.e., you need to go through a testing phase where you work out what audiences work and what creatives and copy works. And we actually have a four-phase approach for our clients. So you can see here phase one, phase two, phase three, phase four. And obviously phase four is the scaling one, which is what I'm going to focus on today. But obviously, in order to get to phase four, you need to go through the other phases first, where you identify the best audiences, the best creatives, and the best demographics. So you obviously need to have all that done. You need to have ad sets and ads that are working, that are within KPI, in order to obviously enter the scaling phase. So that being said, let's dive into it then. So essentially what we do is during the testing phase, we will then identify 2 to 3, maybe sometimes 4 ad sets that are working well, and we duplicate them into a CBO campaign. So we test with an ABO budget, which is ad set budget, and we scale with a CBO, which is campaign budget optimization, which is where you put the daily budget at the campaign level, and then Facebook decides between the different ad sets how it's going to allocate the budget. So in this example here, this is the first campaign we would do. You can see here, this is campaign 1, CBO, and we've got 3 winning audiences: winning audience 1, winning audience 2, winning audience 3, right? And we've tested to know that that audience works. And we duplicate them into a CBO campaign and set the budget. Now, within each ad set, we have got 2 to 4 ads, right? That number is obviously dependent on what we've been testing in the testing phase. In this example, they have got 4 ads in them each. I definitely wouldn't do any more than 4 ads, but you can see here, and it's a mixture of different pieces of copy and different creatives that we have tested and proven to work. So that being said, how do you set the budget? Because that's the most important part of a CBO. How do you know what to set the budget as? So the key to scaling with Facebook is to ensure that the budget is large enough to exit the learning phase. That's what you need to do. So to exit the learning phase, you need to get 50 conversions in a 7-day period. So you need to set the budget big enough that it's likely that that campaign will get over 50 conversions in a 7-day period. So let me give you an example. If during the testing phase, our average cost per lead, let's just say we were going for leads, right? So let's just say our average cost per lead was $10. Now, if we duplicated the best performing ad sets and we put them in a CBO, we need to do 10 times 50 because we need 50 conversions in a 7-day period. So we do 10 times 50, which is obviously 500. Now that's the overall budget for the 7-day period. Obviously at the CBO level, we need to do a daily budget. So we're going to divide it by 7. And you can see the answer is there, 71. So if we were going to be 100% accurate, we would set the daily budget of the CBO in this example if we were getting an average of $10 leads at 71. Now, obviously, when you scale, your costs are going to increase. And obviously, we also need to just factor in that the changes in price might occur. So I never set it at the exact number. I also give it a little bit of bump just to make sure that we're definitely going to get those 50 conversions, because you don't want to set the budget at 71. And then obviously if the lead cost on average is $11 in this CBO campaign, probably a pretty good result still, but you're not going to get the 50 conversions. So that's the main thing, to ensure that we get the 50 conversions. So if this was me in this example, I would probably set it honestly at $100 a day, right? CBO, $100 a day, that's pretty good. You could do 80, 90, but just easy math, easy working out how much you're going to spend. I would do it at $100. Now, there's something important to note, because the $100 will ensure that we probably get 50 conversions, right? Now, what you don't want to do though is be like, well, I want to scale fast, so I'm just going to set the budget at $1,000 a day, because then it's definitely going to get more than 50 conversions. Because the way Facebook works, right, it's an auction. So number one rule of Facebook is that they want to spend you money, right? Facebook's biggest concern is spending your daily budget. They care more about spending your daily budget than they do about getting you cheap conversions. So if I do a CBO campaign and I set a budget of $1,000, Facebook's going to be like, right, we just need to get as many conversions as quickly as possible to hit that $1,000 spend. So they're going to spend our budget more frivolously. Now, what you want to do is set the budget high enough that it exits the low learning phase, but you want to set the budget low enough that Facebook still tries to find us the cheapest placements and the cheapest conversions. Because if we set our CBO at $100, it's going to work harder to find us the cheapest placements. If we set it at $1,000, $5,000 a day, Facebook's going to go, oh shit, this person's got a lot of budget, we need to spend it, let's just try and, spend the budget. And it's not going to work as hard to get you the cheapest conversions, SaaS placements in the auction. So that's important to note. This is why this calculation is so important. CPA times 50 divided by 7. And again, I give us a little bit of a bump to make sure that we're definitely going to hit the 50 conversions. So that's the first campaign that we do. But we also create a second campaign with the same ad sets. So the first CBO that we've created, and actually another note before we move on, with the CBO, you want to let it run for at least 24 hours without touching it. Within the first 24 hours, the results will probably suck. It's not uncommon, if our average cost per lead is $10, it's not uncommon for within the first 24 hours of running the CBO, maybe it's getting a cost per lead on average of like $30, right? Which is obviously shit, and you don't want that because it's tripled your price. But in the first 24 hours, the CBO is just optimizing and trying to find the best audiences. What you'll find is after 24 to 48 hours, you'll start getting a cheaper average cost per lead. And that's when you can go in and maybe turn one of the audiences off that isn't performing well. So that means that then Facebook will spend more of the budget on the audiences that are working within the CBO. So that's just important to know. Don't make any drastic changes within the first 24 hours. Anyway, the second campaign that we launch, we just duplicate the first CBO, right? It's exactly the same. Everything is identical. The only difference is that it's got a cost cap. And you can see here, CBO CC1, which is cost cap 1. Now, a cost cap is effectively where you say to Facebook, spend this daily budget, so in this example, $100, but only spend it if you can ensure that you reach a certain price for my conversion. So in this example, it's leads. So we would say to Facebook, only spend my $100 a day budget if you can get me a conversion for $10, right? Now, two things are going to happen. Number one, Facebook is going to work hard to try and find you conversions for $10, and it's going to do it, and it's going to spend the budget. Or number two, if that $10 is too low and Facebook can't find conversions cheap like $10, then it's not going to spend, right? So if you're not giving the algorithm enough room, then it's not going to spend your money. So, plus side, you're not going to spend $100 and get like 2 leads, right? So you're not going to waste the budget that way. But obviously, if you're trying to scale, then these budgets might not spend. And obviously, then you're not going to achieve your scaling target. So what we want to do, and you can see the calculation we have here, for cost cap 1, we do CPA plus 1. So in this example, our average CPA is $10. So the cost cap that we would do is $10 plus 1. So, and plus 1 doesn't just mean $1. It means kind of like 1 unit. So if I was to have an average cost per lead of $10, I would probably do my first cost cap at $11 or $12. And again, it's not plus 1, it's not plus $1, it's just like plus 1 unit of measurement. So if I was doing an e-commerce advertising campaign and our average cost per acquisition was $50, my first cost cap campaign wouldn't be $51 because that just really doesn't give the algorithm much to maneuver with. my first cost cap campaign would probably be $55 or $60, right? So the +1 is just kind of like a unit. It's not like a specific $1. And what that does is, again, because when you naturally scale, your costs increase, we set the cost cap slightly above the average cost per conversion just to give the algorithm a bit of room. And hopefully it spends the budget and gets us leads for lower than the cost cap. Then we do a third campaign, which is cost cap 2. So you can see the calculation here, CPA +2. So this is basically just another campaign just in case the first campaign doesn't spend. Because sometimes if we obviously want to get the cheapest cost per lead, if we set that cost cap at $11 or $12, maybe when we scale, Facebook can't find cheap conversions like that. So we do cost cap campaign number 2, which is, you can see the calculation, CPA +2. So in that example, if my first cost cap was $12, maybe my second cost cap would be $12. My second cost cap would be $14. In the e-commerce example, if our average CPA was $50 and then our first cost cap was $60, maybe our second cost cap would be $70. So the second cost cap is probably more guaranteed to spend, but obviously the conversions might be a bit more expensive. But again, it's just ensuring we're trying to work out what cost cap is best for, obviously low enough that we still get the cheap conversions, but high enough that the budget is actually going to spend. Obviously, what you don't want to do, if you know that your e-commerce business isn't profitable when you get $70 conversions, like you're losing a shit ton of money, then obviously don't set the cost cap at 70. It needs to be lower, right? So that's the third campaign. The fourth campaign is similar, but instead of a cost cap, we do basically like ROAS bidding, which is effectively the same thing. In the cost caps, we're saying, hey, only spend the budget if you can get me a conversion for this price. In the fourth campaign, we're saying only spend the budget if you can achieve a ROAS of this number. So you can see the calculation is just ROAS +1. And again, 1 is just whatever unit you feel is right for that campaign. So for example, if our average ROAS in the testing phase was 2, then maybe we would do a campaign where we say a ROAS 2.5. That might be the 1 unit on top of it, right? So again, we take the average ROAS for the ad sets that we are scaling, and we basically just give the algorithm a bit more room so it can hopefully spend more money. And again, what you don't want to do is, obviously we all want a ROAS of 10, right? Like we want 10 plus, but it's not realistic. So you can't just go and say, hey, I want a ROAS of 10, because it's very likely that Facebook isn't going to be able to spend the budget. It's not going to be able to find placements and conversions cheap enough to get you a consistent ROAS as 10. So you need to be realistic with your ROAS, right? And that's pretty much it. So they're the 4 campaigns that we scale with typically. Now note that in these 4 campaigns, it's the exact same audiences and ads. So we were able to do 4 scaling campaigns just based off 3 winning ad sets. Now, obviously, if you've got 12 winning ad sets, you can basically scale 4 sets for free. And you can create 4 campaigns for each one. So it's 4 times 4, which is 16. So if you have 12 winning ad sets, you could actually turn that into at least 16 scaling campaigns. So you can see, using this strategy, we are able to scale very dramatically based off a very small amount of ad sets. And obviously, if you have 20 ad sets that are within KPI during the testing phase, then obviously you can scale even quicker as well. So again, but to get to this point, you can't just scale stuff that hasn't proven to work. So you can see the inputs on the left-hand side. We need winning age ranges, winning genders, countries, placements, audiences, ad copy, and creative. You need to have gone through this entire testing phase to ensure that you've got all the right components for you to be able to scale profitably and effectively.